Welcome to the Break Free Real Estate Podcast, your daily guide to financial freedom through real estate. I'm your host, Jocelyn Kaufman, and today I'm here with John Laine. I'm super excited to interview him. John, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to help and share.
Yeah, before we hopped on, John was saying that he is just, living his life. He's a backpacker and he doesn't want to wear suits anymore. And I love it. I am not a dress up person. I'm always in t-shirts and sweatpants. Comfort is key.
Yes, ma'am. I like the whole work from home thing because I've been doing this for 20 years, right? I am unwilling to wear the suit and tie anymore. I am not that guy. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do it because I could not wear something like a tie around my neck. Ugh.
I kind of make fun of the blue blazer, blue shirt, tan shoe crew, right? The guys that are always like I'm a hedge fund manager or I'm a real estate guy, and right, it's just I definitely make fun of those guys. I'm like, yep.
Okay. Yeah. So, let's get back on topic. How do you want to first, John, just outline what your real estate looks like today? Like, what are you currently working on? I know you're a syndicator, so do you want to just expand on kind of what it looks like today?
Sure. So last week we were over in Cheney, Washington, Eastern Washington University, right outside of Spokane, and we're buying a student housing project. So it's an old 1929 historic National Historic Register building. So it's got a gob of tax credits. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really killer deal. We're getting it at 50 cents on the dollar. We're getting it at 20 cents on the dollar. Our acquisition price is like super good. It's probably going to be 650. We're renegotiating, but for 12,000 square feet. And we're going to put in $1.5 million, $1.8 million in renovation. And when it's done, it'll be worth $6 million, with about $300,000 of net cash flow every year.
Wow. That's awesome. Good for you,
Really
John.
happy with
And
it.
yeah, that's great. So obviously that's like top of the top of the real estate. So sounds like you're being really successful in real estate. Do you obviously I see the bookshelf behind you. Do you have a family? Obvious you want to
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
kind of what that part of your life looks like?
Yeah, and my wife, I have a twin brother. Like he's a nerd, just like me. So my brother, my wife, my in-laws, my wife's a teacher. We joke all the time. We don't have kids of our own, but we have 180 kids between us. Yeah, so just normal family stuff. Yeah, we have a lot of kids. These are like within reach. I have a dozen toys, right? We don't have kids. These are my toys. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
For those of you listening, John just held up toys and he just has toys all around him and pictures on his bookshelf with all of his family.
Blankets,
Um,
yeah.
that's great.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if you knew this, John, but I used to be a teacher. I was
I
a high
did
school
see that.
teacher
Yeah, that's
before I
better.
got, yeah, before I got into real estate. And then I gave all my kids away. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yep. Nice. And you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it. I enjoyed most of it. I think kids are disrespectful nowadays. And so that part was, some of the kids were hard to deal with, but I still felt like I was making an impact. And I feel like that's my whole goal in life is to try and make an impact, leave a leave the world better than I found it. And so that's my whole purpose.
Yeah.
So John, let's talk about when you got started in real estate. So what year was it when you decided to get into real estate and kind of
I could
what
just make
were you
you
thinking?
old.
You don't have to say the
I
year if you don't.
yeah, okay. So I'm 55. Um, long story short, I got into a car wreck when I was 18, a really, really bad car wreck. Walked out with a pretty decent sized insurance check. My mom, God bless her, smart enough to say, go buy a house. Right. I mean, she was really pretty supportive of that idea. And at 19, I bought my first house. I really had no idea what I was doing. She was smart enough to say, do this one thing. And it kind of just set me on a path. I bought that house for $58,000. And as the purpose of this podcast, I went and looked it up this morning, and it's 370 grand now. I don't still own it, but I mean, that's how I started. I got in like just one house, and kind of just, I got into real estate backwards. Like a lot of people make a decision, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to go into real estate. I was happy selling shoes, right? Just a good old, yeah, it was a fun gig. I love sitting at the feet of little old ladies. I love serving other people. I thoroughly enjoyed selling shoes. It's a goofy job. But I got sick. I got like really sick, like golf ball size brain tumor type sick. And yeah, I got into real estate because I had no other choice. I watched a couple of infomercials, late night, Robert Allen kind of stuff. The original No Money Down guy, the original multiple streams of income guy, like way decades before Robert Kiyosaki. And yeah, I got sick. I lost my house to foreclosure. I watched my car get repossessed. And I knew that I was either going to die or make money. And so I saw an infomercial and started doing house flips, doing foreclosure bailouts. And yeah, I made $36,000 a year selling shoes, and I made $25,000 on my first deal in real estate. It took me 6 weeks.
Dang.
Yeah, that's kind of how I started.
Yeah,
Necessity, you know.
for sure. So, I mean, first of all, what a great mom to tell you, don't spend this money on something that isn't going to be worth it. Go buy a house. Um, that's awesome. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I always say that I happened upon investing accidentally. Like, I didn't, I never was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Like, that was never my goal. I was a teacher. I decided I needed a place to live. And it seemed obvious to me to find a place that I could supplement some of the mortgage with a roommate, you know? And so I went and found something like that. And then I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do it again. And then a year into it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually investing in real estate. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. It just seemed like an obvious solution to me. And so I just happened upon it. And I personally believe that a lot of successful real estate agents, not agents, investors are like that. They kind of just, something happens in their life to force them into this situation, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And then they're able to figure out analytically and look to the future that, wow, this is actually going to benefit my life as a whole. So, so you started house flipping, and you're, at what point were you like, oh, wow, this is working? Like, at what point were you like, wow, I'm actually an investor?
Yeah, that very first check. I was sick, right? That very first check, I made 36 grand selling shoes and 25 grand in 6 weeks, and I was hooked, right? I was in this situation where I was spending, I don't know, this is back 20 years ago, but three, four, five, six, $7,000 a month in medical bills, just racking up. And yeah, So I went in full tilt. I don't even know. I'd have to go back and check, but I made somewhere north of $140,000 that year. And most of it was I was sick in a bed. Um,
Yeah. So
and just,
how were you flipping when you were sick in a bed? Did you just have teams in place? Were you just finding the deals?
I had a friend of mine literally drive me around neighborhood after neighborhood to go look at houses. I was unable to drive, but I could walk a little bit, and yeah, a friend of mine just kind of nursed me through. It was a weird scenario, right? I mean, I'm bald now by choice, but I was walking around. I mean, you could tell I was sick, and that gave me compassion, right? I was doing a lot of foreclosure bailout work, and because I was sick and because I lost my house, I tended to be more compassionate with the people who were also losing their house, and I could try to help them um, navigate this painful point in their lives. So it was less house flipping, more foreclosure bailout stuff.
Yeah.
How
Okay. So you weren't really fixing them up. Were you bailing them out and renting them out or
Yeah, so I would do lease back, right? I'd buy the house from XYZ person at, let's say the house was worth 250 and they had maybe $75,000 of equity. I'm making these numbers up, but 250 for the value. We would buy it, let's say at 150,000. And then we'd split the equity, right? We'd sign a contract and say, you can buy this house back in 3 years for 200 grand, right? They'd get to keep half the equity. Our investors would keep half the equity. And because of appreciation, those homeowners that we bailed out would be able to buy their house and still keep most of the equity that they started with.
that's
Uh,
cool. I think I think the more compassionate you can be as a real estate investor, the better off you're going to be. Because I think if you're out to just help yourself and you're out to just make as much money as you possibly can, um, then I believe in karma. Like, I don't think that the cards are going to fall in your favor. And then in this case, I'm sure that people were more willing to work with you in particularly because you were compassionate and you understood their situation and you probably got a lot better deals because of it versus just going in like money hungry and trying to get the lowest deal possible. So I think there's a lot of value in those stories.
it was really powerful to be able to, I mean, we would sit there and we would cry together, right? I mean, I I literally have a dozen different cases where the person I'm trying to help, we're sitting there both sobbing. Me for my pain of my loss, them for their pain for their loss, and we're coming together, really helping one another, right? Because I built this network of investors that could work with me to help bail these people out. It was a win-win for pretty much everybody. And they were in there's a number of cases where we would literally buy the house off the courthouse steps and renegotiate with the lender. I mean, we did a lot of different things to help these people. It was good. And then the investors did well, I did well, the clients did well. I mean, it was really, yeah, I liked it. It was definitely one of the best moments of my career.
Yeah. Sounds like you should have had a TV show back then.
I Yeah, no.
Someone
I'm
pitch
nervous
this.
about doing these new podcasts. This is not really. I've been in the limelight. I'm not a big fan of the limelight. I
I'm
just
just
want to
kidding.
work.
That's awesome. So you flipped and then you were flipping houses and then what happened next?
So, long story short, I ended up going through a pretty kind divorce, if there is such a thing. And then, so I consolidated all my assets here in Portland, and then I just took everything and moved to South Carolina. The Portland houses at the time were about 225. South Carolina houses were 25 grand a piece. That's
Yeah.
where, yeah, that's where I got into the whole fix and flip pretty fast. I would sell an asset here and I'd go buy 5 down in South Carolina.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
it
Were you
was
renting them out in between?
doing both, yeah. Do a lot of fix and flip. I'd buy a portfolio of 10 houses, 15 houses at a time, and we'd do fix and flip. We'd fix them up as they go. So most of them were rented, 2 or 3 we'd fix. Um, yeah, it
Okay.
was a pretty good model.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd buy a house for 25 grand. We'd put 15 into it. We would ask the new buyer to get a $60,000 mortgage, right? So we'd get our principal, we'd get our repairs, and we walk out with another 15 grand. And we would carry the contract on another 20 grand, generally speaking. Um, because we had so much equity in it, we would just 15, 20 grand in contract uh, income plus. Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it.
Awesome.
I'm gonna brag, humble brag, just all out brag. We bought or sold a single house every single day for more than 500 days in a row. We either bought or sold something every single day for.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
intense. That's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work.
Sounds like too much work for me. It's
Yeah,
like-
I would never recommend it. Don't do this. Don't try this at home, folks.
I'm more of a buy and hold. Spend, a month finding the perfect property, hold it, and just relax as the income comes in.
That's my speed now.
Yeah,
I
that's awesome. So, how old are your kids?
no kids, lots of nieces and nephews. My wife teaches high school, so they're all uh 15 to 18. But
Awesome.
I
So, if
spend a
one of,
lot of time at their school.
yeah,
They're my kids too.
that's awesome. So, if one of your nieces or nephews was 18 and had a decent income, you knew they were qualified to buy a house, and could do it, what advice would you give them? Would you give them advice to buy a home for themselves, to maybe try to get into like a small multifamily low income, or would you give them advice to kind of do how you started, where you're combining your money with other investors and buying houses?
That's tricky. My niece and nephews are all 3 very bright. They're also fiercely independent. They would probably not accept help. Even though I would ask to help them, they would probably not accept help. Um, I would desperately try to get them to buy a fourplex. Like in my ideal world, every person should own a fourplex, right? That's by far the most cash flow. It's the least risk. It's the safest. The most lucrative. Um, in a in a perfect world, if I were giving advice to my niece and nephews, they're all in that 18 to 25 range. I would do whatever I could to help them get a fourplex, not a duplex, just
Okay.
because there's more risk involved, right? And the price is generally going to be close to the same.
Okay. So you're saying, I'm guessing that there's more risk in a duplex in your opinion because there's less units. So if one's vacant, half of it's vacant. Is that your reasoning?
Yep. And then you have to carry it all. But it's unlikely the fourplex will always that you're going to be the only person in the fourplex. There's always going to be somebody in there. So the burden is divided by 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think one way to go around that I tell some of my clients is, if you have a duplex, if that's what you can afford, then maybe get a roommate as well. So then you not only are dependent on the other unit, but then that could be another way. Or even if a fourplex, like you could have other all of the other 3 units rented out, and then maybe on top of that you get a roommate, and then you're really, in the clear. That's great advice. I definitely agree. The more units you have, the better off you are, as long as it makes sense analytically. But also, in Utah, I'm from Utah, and you could get a duplex for 400,000. You can't get a fourplex for under 800,000. So there's a big difference here. But that being said, if you can get, obviously, the more units you can get, the better. Like, that's just reality.
The lenders will use the income from the 4 units or 3 units. They'll use that income. So if a person can qualify for a duplex, they would, by mathematics, also be able to afford the fourplex.
Yeah. And it's all dependent. And that's another thing too that I think new investors don't realize, is that you need to go have a conversation with the lender. You need to go figure out where you stand. And they can use 75% of the income, of the potential income, to discount. And so even if you feel like you can't buy a property, you probably can, if you're willing to buy something where you can rent out part of it, or multiple units. So that's great advice. Do you have a property that you worked on either early on that you would want to do like a case study on? Kind of walk us through why you thought it was a good property.
Yeah, so I love Portland, right? We the
Do you?
People's Republic of
Just kidding.
Portland. I know it's definitely a thing, but I do love Portland. What we have here is called an urban growth boundary, and a lot of the cities on the West Coast have an urban growth boundary. So you look for a city with an urban growth boundary, and then just figure out where that line is. And so in this case, the property that I'm thinking of, it's 4/10 of an acre, right? And it's got a single family res, a detached garage, and a fourplex, all on the same lot, right? And the single family res has a basement, right? So it's a really intriguing property. And because of the urban growth boundary, the city encourages more development, right? They want to build more stuff on that piece of land. So you can go in and get an ADU, right? You can convert the basement into an alternative dwelling unit, ADU. So you can build that into a duplex. And because it's on its own land, you can you know what a line lot adjustment is, right? You can basically get a ruler and sell this piece of land, right? On the single family res. So you sell that, right? There's 600 grand. You convert the garage into its own unit. There's 250 grand, sell that. Then you convert the fourplex into a townhome, and you sell each of those townhomes for 300 grand. There's 1.2 million. And then once you're done, you build a 9-unit condo on the remaining land for another
Jeez.
2.2 million.
How big of a lot did you say this was?
It's only 4/10 of an acre, but it all works. It's a
You
small
could
piece of
only get away
land.
with that in Portland. They let you do anything there. Just kidding.
It is really cool. But it is, right? That's a property I'm literally working on right now. I mean,
Oh,
we're
that's
buying it
awesome.
for 900 grand, and we're gonna sell the pieces for a total of 4 million.
Wow.
Like, we're getting a 4x on the deal.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so I like this is called infill investing, right? And it takes a little bit of specialty, but the the rewards are spectacular.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
uh, yeah,
Well, I just
highly
learned
recommend it.
something. That's awesome. So we are ending down, John. So I'm gonna end with some final questions. Number one, what was your biggest mistake in real estate?
Oh, so remember I talked about that 77 million in assets that I had? I lost them all.
Jeez. What was
What?
the biggest culprit in that?
Um, well, two things. I was primarily financed by Lehman Brothers, right? And so when they collapsed, I collapsed. And the other, I was very central to one area. And in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, it was all one employer. And in this case, BMW, the BMW plant closed. And all of a sudden, I'm 30% occupied vacancies, which means people are still living in the house but not paying rent, making it
Mm,
double worse. So
okay.
the biggest mistake I made, and if I could recommend to everybody, don't go over 50% LTV, right? Because when stuff happens, and just as a side note, yesterday 4 properties in Arizona just went into foreclosure, totaling $225 million.
Four of your properties?
No, no, not mine. Gosh,
Oh,
no. But that just happened yesterday. $225 million in 4 properties just went into foreclosure. We are about to go into a very bloody cycle in real estate.
yeah.
You're,
Yeah.
I'm,
We'll see.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
yeah.
I like, want to buy stuff right now. But I'm like, I feel I'm probably screwing myself over because I am playing the guessing game. And so I need to stop. But just find
There's
good deals
there's a
somewhere.
lot of good deals happening right now.
Yes, for
My
sure.
biggest learning though is don't go over 50% LTV, right?
I like that. I like that.
Go
And
with
then,
cash, because when things get bad, and they will get bad, you can sell them and you're not going to be destroyed. I was 70% LTV on every loan to value. I would I was 70% LTV on every property we had, and I still lost everything.
yeah. And what he means by that is if easy math, if you have a property that is worth $100,000, he's suggesting that you only have a loan for $50,000, and then 70% LTV would be $70,000. Okay, John. So next question. What did you wish you knew beforehand? Is it the same or is it something different?
I wish I'd known about real estate syndication. I did it all the hard way. I didn't have connections with other people, right? If being able to syndicate deals, i.e., layer, if you've got 50,000 and you've got 25 and somebody else has 10, you can take those dollars and combine them and go buy a transaction. So I
Yeah.
wish I had learned about syndication a lot earlier. It would have
Yeah.
changed everything.
Cool. And then what is your favorite real estate book?
Oh, No Money Down. Yeah, it changed my life. Robert Allen, I know he's a dinosaur now, but Robert Allen, I literally owe my life to Robert Allen. No Money Down, still my favorite book.
Awesome. And then last question, where can people find and connect with you?
So it's a super cheesy website just like me, ratracerescue.net. Ratracerescue.net.
Nice. Okay, Robert Kiyosaki. Just kidding.
Yep. That's exactly where I'm coming from. Yep. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
I like the Roberts. The Roberts did a good job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, John. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. That's it for today. For more daily investing tips and real estate secrets, don't forget to visit breakfreerealestate.com and make sure to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. We will see you tomorrow.